adventurers, to another episode of the Book Club Lounge. We're so excited to have you join us again.
Indeed, it's always a pleasure to chat with our insightful listeners. Whether you're here with a steaming cup of tea or just tuning in on the go, we're delighted to keep you company.
Now, before we dive headfirst into today's mystery thriller rabbit hole, let's get a couple housekeeping things out of the way.
Don't look at me. No actual housekeeping here.
Ha! Thankfully. But really, folks, if you've been enjoying our cozy little book nook here, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and ring that little notification bell thingy.
Do give it a ring, preferably before indulging in a page-turner that might leave your heart thumping too hard for multitasking.
Exactly. Staying connected means you won't miss a single episode. And speaking of episodes, this one's going to be a real snowstorm of suspense. Stick around, okay?
All right, book lovers, let's jump right into today's topic. Clara, isn't it amazing how Freida McFadden wears so many hats? A practicing physician specialising in brain injury and an internationally best-selling author. Definitely no small feat.
A practicing doctor who writes psychological thrillers on the side? Yeah, I think we're officially underachieving, Eliott. Just saying.
Well, she is certainly exceptional. Her expertise clearly informs her work, doesn't it? Many of her novels tap into the complexities of the human mind, unravelling psychological depths with intrigue and suspense. In The Crash, for instance, some reviewers have noted the tension feels almost visceral, like you're trapped alongside the protagonist.
But then there's the flip side. Critics and some readers, brace yourself, feel this one didn't quite pack the punch of her earlier books. Like the tension melted away a little too fast. You know, like chocolate left on a dashboard in July. Still tasty, just not the same.
Interesting metaphor there, Clara. But yes, opinions are certainly divided. Some laud The Crash for its gripping premise. A pregnant woman stranded during a snowstorm. Alone, vulnerable, and then, of course, all the sinister twists that follow. Fans seem to find it absolutely riveting.
And then you have others who seem to think it's, what was that phrase? Oh yeah, predictable. Ouch, right? But hey, that's what makes book discussion so juicy. Everyone brings their own take.
Yes, and to be fair, McFadden's strength lies in creating narratives that are, if not unpredictable, undeniably easy to lose oneself in. This particular novel might not have everyone gasping in shock, but it's drawn strong praise for its emotional core and characters. Tegan's struggle has resonated with many mothers, evoking an intense empathy.
Yeah, I've seen folks call it a gut-wrenching portrayal of survival, while others say Tegan's character is, finally, a Freida McFadden heroine with a bit of street smarts. Progress, guys.
It's certainly intriguing to see how McFadden integrates her medical expertise into fast-paced, highly commercial fiction. Say what you might about predictability. Her attention to psychological detail is striking and uncommon.
Totally. Plus, any author who can inspire heated debates like genius or meh is clearly doing something right. You don't have over 80,000 reviews on Amazon by accident, you know.
That's true. Love it or not, Freida McFadden has established her place in the modern thriller genre.
Speaking of Tegan's story, Eliott, let's talk about our protagonist. 8 months pregnant, on a solo road trip in the middle of a blizzard, just how much worse could things possibly get?
Quite a bit, as it turns out. Her car stalls naturally, the time-honoured hallmark of doom for any thriller. But in Tegan's case, it's oddly symbolic, don't you think? Her vehicle breaking down mirrors the unravelling of her life's plans. It's not just bad luck, it's fate taking a nasty turn.
Oh, come on, Eliott. That's a bit deep for a busted radiator, no?
Maybe. But it sets the tone, doesn't it? Think about the inevitability here. She ventures out to escape her troubles, her collapsing life, a delicate pregnancy, no solid support system, and ends up stranded with a literal broken ankle in the middle of nowhere. That is textbook situational irony.
Fair. And then swoops in good old Hank, the silent, neighborly type with muscles to boot. Like something straight out of a Western, only less cowboy hat and more snow gear. But, let's just say he's no knight in shining armor.
And a very deliberate choice on McFadden's part, I believe. Readers are conditioned to trust the helpful stranger in a situation like this. For Hank, though, his sheer physicality complicates that trust. He looms rather than reassures.
Right? The scene where he just keeps glancing at her, sizing her up, and Tegan's thinking, this guy could snap me like a twig. It's unsettling, but also she has no choice. What's she gonna do, hobble away in the snow with her ankle the size of a blown-up marshmallow?
Exactly. McFadden effectively lures us into feeling just as trapped as Tegan. It's a low-level simmering dread, heightened by Hank's muted reassurances and the sterile warmth of his house. It's a subtle lesson in dependency dynamics. You mistrust him, yet he might just save her life.
But the real kicker? It doesn't last, does it? Just when you think they're the weird but harmless good Samaritans, you start noticing the cracks. Hank's wife, Polly.
The overly helpful caregiver with a touch of, how should I put this, overzealous attention. It's unsettling from the get-go. A medical background doesn't quite explain her obsessive interest in Tegan, now does it?
Totally. The perpetual hovering, the too smooth reassurances. It's like she's trying to convince herself as much as Tegan. Makes your skin crawl just thinking about it.
And yet, Clara, this part of the narrative is cleverly ambiguous. McFadden doesn't tip her hand too soon. Is Polly just eccentric, overcompensating for the loneliness of rural life? Or is there something far more nefarious lurking beneath her forced cheeriness?
Ugh, don't remind me of that overly cheery, "you're safe here" line she keeps saying. Gave me goosebumps every time. Spoiler alert. It's rarely true in thrillers. Anyway, if we're rating places to hold up during a snowstorm, I'm giving this cabin a solid F for vibes.
And the chapter leaves us poised but uneasy, doesn't it? Just as Tegan begins to suspect not all is as it seems, the cracks widen ever so slightly. The warmth of her brief safety grows suffocating, an expertly layered prelude to, well, more trouble, clearly.
So, just when Tegan thinks this strange but seemingly harmless couple might actually offer some refuge, the cracks in Polly's cheery facade deepen. And boom, we find her tucked away in that basement room. Comforting? Not exactly the word I'd use.
Indeed, Clara. Not only does she feel physically trapped given her injury, but the psychological confinement is equally palpable. She's at their mercy, reliant on both Hank and Polly for everything.
Oh, and the room. It's barely welcoming at all. And Polly's excuse? We just spruced it up for you. Like, does she expect applause? It's, what, an actual hospital bed? And those creepy medical supplies? Total red flag parade.
It's a rather clinical space, yes. Immaculately clean, yet devoid of any warmth. Almost like a stage set for Polly's own scripts of care and control. You have to wonder, who is she really trying to help? Tegan or herself?
Good question. Seriously, though, Polly's got all this backstory. Like, when you learn she used to work as a nurse, it's like, okay, that explains why you're qualified to bandage an ankle. But wait, does it explain the hovering?
That's precisely it. Polly's past casts a shadow over the present dynamic. McFadden drip feeds us just enough about the incident, doesn't she? Something that ended her career. There's a palpable sense of guilt, even desperation to regain control. Over what, though?
Over everything, apparently. And you know what made it worse? The way she's always popping in unannounced. Like, no knock, no, hey, need anything? Just there. Watching, waiting. I swear, if I were Tegan, I'd lose my mind.
Well, Polly's unrelenting presence heightens the atmosphere of surveillance, which, frankly, is nerve-wracking. And then McFadden throws in the neighbours.
Oh my God, yes, the neighbors. Talk about adding fuel to the fire. Perfect strangers showing up with groceries out of nowhere, chatting like everything's normal, and you're just thinking, are they part of this weird vibe too?
Precisely. They compound the unease as their pleasantries feel rehearsed, even performative. McFadden uses them brilliantly as foils, not adding clarity, but rather diffusing suspicion unevenly. Are they oblivious or complicit?
It's got to be the latter, right? Because when one of them casually mentions some past tragedy related to Polly, like whispers about trust issues, I'm basically screaming, who says that? Literal chill down my spine.
It's a prime example of how McFadden layers suspense, mistrust building in both small interactions and broader circumstances. Every circumstantial kindness seems laced with ulterior motives, isolating Tegan further in her predicament.
And seriously, when Polly brings out those old baby clothes at the end of that chapter, my thought was like, nope, nope, nope. It's not sweet or nostalgic. It's creepy.
Yes, a facade of sentimentality masking something far more troubling. These little gestures not only unsettle Tegan, but they keep us, as readers or observers, entirely off balance too.
Definitely. And okay, I'll stop there before I spoil the whole build-up for everyone not caught up yet. But man, the tension is next level. Like, you're holding your breath through every interaction. You feel it too, right? All right, look, Elliot. Just when you think you've got Polly pegged with her controlling, unsettling vibe, McFadden takes it up another notch. So when Tegan starts piecing together their bizarre, fragmented motives, it's like every decision she makes becomes a gamble between survival or something far worse.
Right, these chapters ramp up the stakes considerably. McFadden shifts from the unsettling static tension to outright action, albeit furtive and restrained. Tegan begins exploring her captivity, poking at the edges of her situation for weaknesses.
Which, can I just say, takes guts. Or desperation. Probably both. Like sneaking through Polly's medical bag when the woman is literally lurking just the next room over. My palms were sweating just reading that part.
Yes, it's a clever way to draw us into Tegan's increasing resourcefulness. She knows full well one wrong move could escalate everything. But here's the more subtle point. It's not just Polly she's outmaneuvering. It's the psychological pressure mounting within her as well.
Totally. And while I loved her resourcefulness, let's not forget her hesitation. Like when she discovers the makeshift escape route through the supplies closet and literally stops herself because the what-ifs creep in. Ugh, that inner conflict had me yelling, "Girl, just go."
But that hesitation is so real, Clara. It reflects the fragile balance between survival instincts and a fear of the unknown. McFadden inserts a critical question here. Does the devil you know sometimes feel safer than the one you don't?
Oh, and Polly being so oblivious. Or is she? That woman drops these weirdly specific, cringe-inducing anecdotes that make you think she knows exactly what Tegan's plotting. When she tells that story about losing control once, with that disturbingly calm smile, chills.
She's masterfully written, isn't she? Polly becomes increasingly symbolic, a mirror projecting not just her own trauma, but Tegan's darkest fears. And then, of course, there's Hank, whose quiet compliance suddenly seems far less benign.
Right? The sudden switch, when his patience snaps and he flat out tells Polly she's crossed some line, it's like he's almost human for a second. But how much of that reaction is guilt versus self-interest? Seriously, can he be trusted at all?
And that's part of the brilliance here. McFadden avoids clear heroes and villains. Even Polly, twisted as she is, operates through a framework of trauma. Everyone is desperate for a semblance of control. Every action feels tainted by past wounds and moral ambiguity.
It's exhausting in the best way, though. With the layers of deceit stacking up, I'm just trying to figure out what's coming next. When Tegan finally makes her move to escape,
we're left teetering on a knife's edge. There's no way to predict the fallout entirely. Every crack in these dynamics feels ready to shatter, but when and how remains anyone's guess.
So, Elliot, after all that tension surrounding Tegan's escape, the crash feels like it pushes those survival instincts to the forefront. It's primal, almost animalistic in a way, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely, Clara. It's woven into the fabric of the story. Tegan's journey is a testament to the sheer willpower of a person determined to protect not just themselves, but a future. Her unborn child, specifically. What's remarkable is how McFadden captures that instinct without glorifying it.
Yeah, and it's not all heroics and strength either, right? Like, Tegan totally falters, doubts herself, questions everything, and that makes her feel so, what's the word? Real.
Precisely. McFadden doesn't portray survival as some tidy, heroic arc. It's messy, rife with hesitation, setbacks, and complicated decisions. That's where the theme of morality comes into play, isn't it? The boundaries between right and wrong blur as desperation escalates.
Totally. Like when Polly starts spilling her weird justifications for keeping Tegan trapped there. You know it's wrong, obviously, but I also kind of see how she got twisted into believing it's okay. Ugh, it's maddening.
Exactly the point. McFadden makes us wrestle with those grey areas. Polly's actions are abhorrent. Yes, but then you see her grief and motivation, and suddenly you're questioning everything. And let's not forget Hank. Is he complicit or just trapped in his own way?
I'm still not sure, and that's what makes it scary. No one's squeaky clean, but no one's fully, irredeemable either. Even Tegan has her moments, like when she hesitates to trust anyone. You get it, but it's frustrating too.
Her mistrust serves as a reflection of her trauma, doesn't it? The novel subtly examines that, how past wounds and betrayals shape present actions. And although it makes her cautious, it also sharpens her instincts, propelling her towards resilience, albeit cautiously.
Okay, but let's talk about that resilience. How she keeps moving forward little by little, even when it feels impossible. I swear, she's like the definition of determination. Is it weird to say it was kind of inspiring?
Not at all. Tegan's determination is a reminder of the human spirit's capacity to adapt. McFadden doesn't just throw obstacles at her, she makes Tegan confront the emotional echoes of her decisions, underscoring that survival isn't merely physical, it's deeply psychological.
And that, my friends, is why this story sticks. It's not just about what happens next. It's about tapping into these universal fears and heartaches and showing that even in chaos, there's a chance to fight back. I mean, wow, heavy stuff, right? So, Eliott, speaking of that determination, didn't you find it fascinating how even the smallest setbacks felt monumental for Tegan? Like when she could have taken the risk to leave earlier but hesitated. It was such a pivotal moment, wasn't it?
Indeed, Clara. It's a testament to McFadden's style that even amidst mixed reactions, her book still generates such compelling conversation. Whether you loved it, found it predictable, or fell somewhere in between, there's no denying the crash leaves a mark. Some marks perhaps deeper than others.
Totally. And I don't know about you guys listening, but this one was such a fascinating blend of suspense, character struggles, and moral gray zones. Honestly, I kind of still can't decide if Polly is more tragic or maniacal, and that, I think, is the brilliance of it.
Quite so. McFadden crafts her stories to linger long after the last page, forcing us to grapple with themes of survival, morality, and trust. It's the reason her readership continues to grow, even as opinions about individual plots and twists vary.
Exactly. And hey, just because we're wrapping things up here doesn't mean the fun stops. If this episode has sparked your curiosity, go ahead and check out our affiliate link to grab a copy of The Crash. Bonus points if you can avoid reading it all night long, unless insomnia is the vibe.
And of course, we'd love to hear from you. Leave us a comment with your thoughts or insights on The Crash. Or better yet, share a book suggestion for our next episode. We truly enjoy exploring stories alongside you, our delightful and ever-curious audience.
Yes, join the conversation. We absolutely adore hearing your recommendations and hot takes. And let's face it, who doesn't want to be part of a cozy, nerdy, book-loving crew like this?
Well said, Clara. Until next time, thank you all for keeping us company and for diving into the literary depths with us. Stay curious, fellow book lovers.
This has been the Book Club Lounge signing off for now. Catch you next week with another page-turner, more laughs, and, as always, a whole lot of literary love. Bye, everyone.
Goodbye all. Take care.